Hello everyone, myself Sowmya, Assistant Professor in CSE AIML Department, MLR Institute of Technology. So in this video, we are going to discuss about Flask HTTP methods. So we know in Flask, so from client, you're sending request to the server. So this is server and this is client. So here what you're doing, so whatever the URL you are using to request the client, that URL you are building here using root method. And coming to the server is generating some response. So how the server will generate the response? By executing some methods. So those methods we are calling as view functions. So those functions also we are only writing under this root method. Whatever the functions you are writing, those functions you are calling as view functions. By executing these view functions, the server will generate the response and it will display in the client side again. So to send this request to the server, you are using HTTP protocol. So internally HTTP again using some different method to send this data. So those methods we are going to discuss in this video. So coming to the overview of this presentation, what are the different HTTP methods we have to transfer this data? So the famous methods or the important methods are get method and post method. We will discuss these two methods along with the example applications. So HTTP. So HTTP is nothing but hypertext transfer protocol. So to send the request from the client to server, we are using this HTTP protocol. So if this HTTP protocol uses different methods to transfer the data. So the client will request the server, but while requesting, it will also send some data. For example, consider I want to log in into my Gmail page. I will enter username and password and then I'll click on submit button. Whenever I click on submit button, the request will be sent to the server by sending these details. What are the details it is sending? The username and password also it is. The username and password details are sending to the server. So how these details will be sent to the server? So we are using different methods to send these details. What are those methods? So mainly we will focus on these two methods, get and post method. But the difference is the get method will transfer the data without encrypting the data. So in unencrypted form. So that means if I enter Sowmya as it is, the Sowmya will be transferred to the server without encryption. So that is like lack of security. If we have some privacy information or private information, it will not secure the data. Whereas the post will also follow the same as get, but it will transfer the data by encrypting the data. After encryption only the data will be transferred. And at the same time, the server does not maintain this data. It will not cache this data. Whatever the data you are sending, it will not store the data anyway. But coming to the head method, this is similar to get method, but it doesn't contain any response body. That means whenever you send the data, that is request, at the same time we will also get the response. But in head, we only send the data, it doesn't contain any response. So whereas put method is also similar to post method and delete method is used to delete the current representation. So we will mainly focus on post and get method. So first we will discuss about the post method. So if I use the post method, the data will be transferred securely by encrypting the data. So coming to the example, so here in this example, we are focusing or we are writing HTML as well as Python. Why? Because HTML is your client application. From the client application only, you are sending the data to the server. So here the server application we are taking as Python and the client application you are taking as HTML. So to differentiate these two things, you need to save your HTML files in a separate folder called templates. So already we have created a new folder. In that new folder only, you are saving all your Python files. But now, I cannot store HTML files in this new folder. Of course, I can store, but the server will not understand. So, which one is HTML, which one is Python file? To understand that, what we are doing, we are storing HTML files inside new folder. I am creating a folder called templates, and under this templates, I am storing all the HTML files. So here this program login1.html, it is a front end for this. So here what I am doing, I am writing a form. So form action. So when this action will be executed, whenever I click on the submit button of this form. So what it will do, whenever you click on the submit button, it will go to this URL. What is this URL? This is the local host followed by port number and the URL is /login1. So this URL, with this URL, some view function will be there inside the Python program. So this is not actually a Python program name. It is a URL for a particular view function which is available in the Python program. It will directly go there. But before going there, you should execute this application. So why? Because you are not directly executing the Python application in this program. Why? Because what's your front end? Your front end is HTML. So I'm simply executing my HTML page only. So HTML page internally it is calling the Python application. But this Python application, you have to run this application before calling from the HTML. So that we will do it later. And this action, whenever you click on the button, it will go there. And what is the method you're using to transfer the data? Post method. So the second attribute of form is method. So we have two possibilities for method. One is get or post. So if I use get method, the data will not be encrypted, as it is the plain data will be transferred. So whereas if I use post, the data will be encrypted and the encrypted data will be sent to the server. So here if I don't specify any method, by default method is get. But if you want to secure your data, you need to mention the method as post. Now under this form, what I'm doing, I'm taking a name field followed by text field. The name of this text field is uname. And the second text field is password. Input type is equal to password. And the name of this text field is password. Followed by submit. So I'll read one username, followed by one password, and followed by one submit button. Whenever you click on the submit button, it will directly go to this URL. That's all. I'm closing this. So now I'm writing a Python application here, post_example.py, post Python application. So here from Flask, import star. So here I'm writing star instead of specific class Flask. I'll tell you why. After this, you're creating the object. Now here I'm setting a root. What is the URL you're setting? /login1. So this is the URL you're calling in the previous HTML file. So this is the URL. So http:/localhost 5000 is the default URL for every application, and after that what is the URL you have added? /login1. So this particular method, this particular URL you are calling there. And what is the methods it is accepting? The second parameter of root is options. So the first parameter is a URL which you are building, and the second parameter is a options. So if you have any options or if you have any information about that root setting the URL, you need to mention in the second parameter. So what is the information I am mentioning here? Methods. Actually I have get and post method, but in this program what is the method you are using? Post method. So that you are specifying here. So actually if you are using a get method, you don't need to specify it. Why? Because it's a default method, you don't need to specify. But it's a post method, so that's why I am writing methods is equal to post. So for the post method I am using here. For this URL, what is the method you are executing? Def login. So this login method will be executed whenever this URL is called. When this URL is called, whenever you click on the button of that particular form. So what this login method is doing, it is taking the data from the HTML form. In the front end, you have entered some username and password followed by submit button. If you click on submit button, the control will come to login method. So now here what it is doing? Request. So request is a predefined object. It will contain the information which is sent by the client. So the client is requesting the server by passing some information. What is the data it is sending? The user is sending form, the complete form he is sending. What is that form is containing? One username, one password followed by one button. So now request is object which indicates the request sent by the client to the server. So request dot what the client has sent? Form. So form is a predefined array here which contains the form data. The complete form data will be stored in this array. So request dot form. So the form contains all the form information, but what I want especially the username field. For this username field, I have given a name called uname that you need to pass as the attribute here. So form of uname, it will retrieve the name which you have entered in this text field. For example, if I enter some Sowmya, Sowmya will be retrieved from here and it will be stored in a variable called uname. The same way the password field also will be retrieved. Request.form of the password field name is pass here. So this will be retrieved and it will be stored in a variable called password. So now I am checking these two values with some static values. If uname is equal to Ayush and password is equal to Google. If you enter the username as Ayush and the password as Google, then I am generating a positive message. Return welcome percentile S. What is this percentile indicates here? percentile uname. What is percentile uname? That is Ayush. What is the message I'll get? Welcome Ayush. If I enter Ayush and Google in these fields, I'll get this message. If I enter any other details other than Ayush and Google, if I enter any other details, I'll get the message failed. That's all. We know this, right? So now we'll try to execute this application, but here, what is the condition? You store this HTML file. First, you need to create a folder called templates. In that templates folder only, you should save this HTML file. And before executing this HTML file, you have to execute your Python application. Why? Because Python is a backend application here. So before executing the front end, you need to execute the backend. So this is login1.html. Just now we discussed about it. I'm just saving it. Where I need to save C drive, users, MLR IT. Within the new folder, you need to create a new folder called templates. In this templates, I need to save this file with the extension HTML. And now we have backend for this, that is Python post_example. So now you can save this application directly in the new folder itself. Post_example with the extension .py. So now directly I will execute login1.html. We will try to see what happens. So here we have templates folder. Directly I am executing login1. So here what I need to enter here, I need to give Ayush and Google. If I click on submit, I'm not getting anything. Now, why? Because you need to run your application first. The Python application you have to run first. So, first activate it. Sorry, you need to change the directory to new first. Then after that, set Flask_app is equal to what's your application? Post_example.py. Flask run. See, now it has generated the IP, but I don't want this IP. I just need to execute this. So now go to your front end. This is your front end. So now I'm entering Sowmya. And the password is also Sowmya. If I click on submit, see what I'm getting failed. I told you that in the program we have written the username as Ayush and the password as Google. If I enter any value other than those values, I'm getting failed message. So now I'm going back. Now I'm entering Ayush and Google. Then if I click on submit, see what I'm getting. I'm getting a positive message. Welcome Ayush. So here you are taking the HTML as a front end and the back end as a Python. But before executing the front end application, I mean like it is sending the request to the server, but the server has to execute its application first. So coming to the next method is get method. It is similar to post method, but here in the get method, the data will be transferred in an unencrypted form. That means the data will not be secured. So here the program will be same here. So form action. So whenever you click on the submit button, it will go to here. This is login 2. And we are not specifying any method here. Why? Because the default method is get itself. So I'm not specifying any method. So I'm taking username and password followed by one submit button. Then I'm closing this HTML form. Coming to the Python application, this is little bit different to read the data from the HTML form if you are using get method. And here while setting the root also, the URL is /login2. So this URL only you are using here, /login2. And coming to the second options attribute. I mean in the root method, in the previous example, we have used another attribute or another parameter called methods is equal to, we have written as post. But here I'm not using any method. Why? Because the default method itself is a get method. I don't need to specify that. If it is a post method, then only you need to specify that. In the login method, so for this URL, this login method will be executed in this login. I just want to retrieve the details from the HTML form. How to retrieve them? Request is the object which contains the requested data, but here you are using another attribute called args. So in the previous post example, the data will be stored in the form array itself, but here you are using args dot, you are taking the information. So get of what you want to retrieve, uname. So uname is the field name of the username, and the same way you are retrieving the information about the password also, and you are storing these two details in the local variables uname and password. So now I am checking if uname is equal to Ayush and password is equal to Google, then print a message welcome Ayush, otherwise print a message failed. So that's all. So this is similar to the previous example, but only difference is here you're using get method. If you're using get method, you don't need to specify the method explicitly. And to retrieve the data also, we have some different approach. So this is our front end login to. See, I'll try to execute the front end first, but where do I need to store this application? So you need to save this application within the templates folder of your folder. So within MLR IT, so my folder is new folder. Here we have create templates, and here you need to save your HTML file. And coming to the Python application, get underscore app. So this I am storing in new folder itself. Get underscore example.python. Right. So now without executing the background application, that is Python application, I don't get the output. So in the previous example we have seen. So now I'll try to execute the application get underscore py and run your application. That's all. We are not copying it and pasting it. Just go to your templates folder and execute your login to. So here you can give any values. I am giving Sowmya and Sowmya. Then if I click on submit, I am getting failed. Why? Because in the program we have accepted only Ayush and Google. So now I am just refreshing it, and if I write Ayush and Google, I am getting welcome Ayush. So that is about the main HTTP methods get and post. So in this program, in this video, we have seen different Flask HTTP methods like get and post with the example application, and we have also seen the difference, like how to retrieve the data from the HTML form if you use get method or post method. We have executed the example applications also. Thank you.